Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a book that sparked a ton of conversation, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Oh, yeah. This one, it's interesting how much people want to talk about this book
Yeah.
and not just the plot. It's like
Yeah.
they're really grappling with some bigger ideas.
Exactly. And we've got reader reviews coming out of our ears, so we're going to unpack all of that today. But first, for anyone who maybe hasn't read it yet, let's give the quick rundown. Who is Evelyn Hugo?
Well, imagine this. You've got this Cuban-American actress explodes onto the scene in the 1950s, and she becomes like this huge legend.
Mm.
But she's known just as much for her 7 marriages as she is for, her talent.
Okay, so seven husbands, that's a lot of husbands even for Hollywood, right?
Right.
But before we even get into that, I got to ask, from the beginning I was wondering, why is Evelyn Hugo choosing to tell all of this to Monique Grant? Like she's not exactly a big name journalist.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that's really what hooks you right from the start is like
Yeah.
Evelyn's saying, here's my life, figure me out. And the way the story's structured, too, it's like with these interview transcripts, and then you have these little snippets that seem like they're from like old news articles.
Yeah. It's like you're reading a real Hollywood tell-all.
Exactly.
You get so sucked in. You mentioned her talent earlier, and a lot of people have compared Evelyn Hugo to some real-life icons, like your Marilyn Monroes,
Yeah.
your Elizabeth Taylors.
Yeah.
These incredibly talented women who, had to kind of claw their way to the top in a system that honestly wasn't really made for them to succeed.
It's a really good point, and I think one of the most powerful lines of the book is when Evelyn says, make them pay you as much as they would a white man.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good way.
Which, is just as relevant today as it was back then, and really highlights the fight that so many women, especially women of color, still face in Hollywood.
It's like, yeah, there's all this glitz and glamour, but underneath it all, there's still this struggle for equality. And okay, speaking of struggles, let's talk about those 7 husbands. Each one seems to represent a different part of her life, right?
Yeah.
But from what I remember, none of them were really, her true love.
That's one of the things that kind of throws you off in the book, where you
Er-
go in expecting this like epic love story,
Right.
but the reality is way more complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, even Ernie Diaz, her first husband, it's pretty clear from the start that for her, he's more of a means to an end.
A way out.
Yeah, escape poverty, get her career going.
It kind of makes you think, though, back then was that level of ambition almost like, did it require you to be ruthless?
Oh, for sure.
Like, you almost can't blame her for using what she had to get ahead.
And that's something that comes up a lot in the reader reviews.
Like, were Evelyn's actions, even the ones that maybe hurt people, were they justified? And how much of that, comes from the pressures that she faced as a woman, as a Cuban-American woman trying to make it in that world?
I mean, one reviewer even said that it made them rethink their own career choices.
Wow.
Like the compromises they've made. And it's fiction, but it really makes you think about these real life dilemmas.
Absolutely. And, that kind of leads us to probably the most talked about part of the book, Evelyn's relationship with Celia St. James.
Oh, yes.
That one really got people talking.
Oh, it's definitely not your average Hollywood love story. You've got forbidden love, secret identities, passion. I mean, I was totally hooked, but then I saw some reviews saying it was toxic.
Right. And I think that's the thing with this book, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from sparking these kinds of conversations.
Right.
On the surface, you have this glamorous affair, but underneath, it's exposing the homophobia of the time.
Right.
You know how it forced them to live this lie? It makes you wonder, even though things are supposedly more accepting now, are the pressures really that different? Like, celebrities still have to be so careful about how they present themselves, especially their personal lives.
It's true. It's like we're looking at a reflection of ourselves, maybe distorted by time and fame, but still relatable.
Okay, so we've got ambition, we've got forbidden love, we've got these 7 husbands who you said represent these different chapters in Evelyn's life. Where do we even begin to unpack all of that?
Well, I think each husband gives us a unique perspective on Evelyn's journey and the choices she made.
Okay.
And as we go through their stories, we'll start to see how those connect to these bigger themes of identity, ambition, and the price of fame. Thinking about those husbands, Don Adler, her second husband, that's a relationship that really seemed to stick with people.
Yeah, it's tough to read for sure. It felt so different from, that whole glamorous Hollywood image.
Right. And it really brings home the fact that behind all the glitz and glamour, there are these real life struggles.
Yeah.
And I think Don's abuse, both physical and emotional, it made people confront The dark side of fame
Yeah.
and the power imbalances that can come with it.
And even the way Evelyn gets out of that marriage, it shows how strong she is, but also how few options women had back then. Like one reader said, it made them think about how far we've come, but also how far we still have to go.
Exactly.
But
The book doesn't try to sugarcoat things, and I think it uses those tough moments to get us talking about societal norms
right.
and how they can impact people's choices.
You were saying earlier that each husband represents a different chapter in her life. Do you think we could also see them as like representing different societal pressures that she had to deal with?
Oh, that's a really interesting way to look at it. Like, take Rex North, her fourth husband.
Yeah.
That marriage was a total Hollywood publicity stunt,
Oh, yeah.
manufactured to boost both their careers.
The smoke and mirrors of stardom, right? It's crazy how those fake relationships can sometimes overshadow the real person.
Totally. And readers pick up on that.
Yeah.
There's almost a cynicism in some of the reviews we saw, especially about Rex.
Right.
It's like they're questioning how much of what we see is actually real, not just in Hollywood, but everywhere.
Yeah. It's like we're constantly bombarded with these carefully curated versions of reality, social media, celebrity culture. It makes you wonder what's genuine anymore.
And Evelyn's story plays into that tension perfectly. Even in her relationships, she's always calculating, strategizing. Which brings us to Max Gerard, her third husband. Now he's a character that people really had mixed feelings about.
Oh, yeah, I remember him. He was like charming, successful, almost too perfect.
Right.
But there was something off about him. It was like he was more in love with the idea of Evelyn Hugo than with the actual person.
Exactly. A lot of readers saw him as representing that superficial side of Hollywood,
Mm.
someone obsessed with image and status. And the fact that Evelyn falls for it, even for a little while, shows that even the strongest people can be vulnerable to that kind of manipulation.
It's like she's searching for validation in all the wrong places, trying to find herself through these powerful men, which actually makes her relationship with Celia even more powerful, because that's the one where she seems to be her truest self.
Exactly. Their love, even though it's tumultuous and ultimately tragic,
Yeah.
it represents that longing for a real connection, for acceptance that goes beyond the superficial.
Okay, so we've got Dawn representing abuse of power, Rex the allure of fame, and Max the trap of superficiality. 3 down, 4 husbands to go. What did their stories tell us about Evelyn?
Well, each one adds another piece to the puzzle. For example, Harry Cameron, her fifth husband, he brings in a whole other layer of emotion.
Yeah.
Their relationship goes way beyond typical Hollywood drama.
Right.
It touches on grief, loyalty, the power of friendship.
Their story was so moving, it felt so real and raw, like a reminder that even with all the craziness of fame, you can still find these genuine connections.
Exactly, and it's those moments of vulnerability, those glimpses behind the mask that really resonate with readers.
Mm.
It makes you realize that even someone like Evelyn Hugo, who seems untouchable, is still human with all the complexities and contradictions that come with it.
Okay, so Harry represents that human side of Evelyn, the part that craves real connection. What about the other 3? How do they fit into her story?
John Braverman, her sixth husband, he offered her like a break from the whirlwind of Hollywood.
Okay.
He was stability, normalcy, a chance for a quieter kind of love.
But even that wasn't enough to make her happy, right?
It wasn't, and that says a lot about her. She can't fully conform to expectations, even when they seem appealing. Evelyn thrives on passion, on pushing boundaries, even if it leads to heartache.
It's like she's always searching for something, like a missing piece of herself. Which makes me think about the last husband, Robert Jameson. Their marriage was so secretive.
It was, and that secrecy, those hidden truths, it's not just about their relationship.
Right.
It's woven through the whole book.
You're right. It's like Evelyn's holding something back, some crucial piece of information that will explain everything. And that's what keeps you reading, that need to figure it all out, to understand her choices.
It's brilliant storytelling, and it shows how the best stories are often the ones that leave you with more questions than answers.
So we've explored 6 husbands, abuse, fame, superficiality, connection stability, and secrecy. That leaves us with the final piece of the puzzle, husband number 7. What's his role in all of this, and how does he connect to those big themes we've been talking about?
Well, Robert Jameson, her 7th husband, he embodies the ultimate sacrifice, what Evelyn is willing to do to protect the people she loves.
Okay.
Their marriage was unconventional, maybe even controversial, but it reveals a deeper truth about her life, a truth that explains her choices and the sacrifices she made.
Okay, you've definitely got me intrigued. Let's dive into that final chapter of her marital saga and see how it all comes together.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so Robert Jameson, husband number 7. You said something about sacrifice earlier. What was it about this marriage that felt so different?
Well, with Robert, it's almost like the facade was all about protection,
Hmm.
you know? Like she had to be so careful about her image her whole career.
Right.
And with this marriage, it wasn't really about ambition. It was more about protecting a secret that could have ruined everything for her.
It makes me think about some of those reader comments we saw. Some people were praising her loyalty while others were questioning her methods. It's hard to know where to draw the line, right? Protecting the people you love, even if it means not being completely honest.
And that's what I love about this book. It doesn't give you easy answers.
Yeah.
Evelyn's choices make you really think about your own values. Like what you think is right and wrong.
It's like she's saying, what would you do?
Exactly. And I think that that's why this story sticks with people, especially those who have their own secrets or who've had to make tough choices for love.
So let's talk about that big reveal. What was the secret that Evelyn was protecting? I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read the book, but what were people's reactions?
That reveal is definitely the turning point of the whole book.
Yeah.
And it really got people talking. Some readers felt like everything finally made sense. All the pieces came together. Others felt kind of betrayed, like they were questioning her motives and how her choices affected everyone.
So it sounds like it's more than just a plot twist. It's about challenging how we see the truth. The stories we tell ourselves and the stories we tell the world.
Absolutely. It raises questions about identity, like
Yeah.
how much of ourselves do we show to the world and how much do we keep hidden because we're afraid of being judged or rejected.
Right.
And those are questions that everyone deals with, not just celebrities.
It's like Evelyn's story is saying we all have secrets, right? We all have things we hide. But it's what we do with those secrets, how they shape our choices that makes us who we are.
That's a really good way to put it. And I think that's why even after you finish the book, you're still left thinking about it,
Yeah.
trying to understand the complexities of her life and why she made the choices she did.
And speaking of choices, why do you think Evelyn chose Monique to tell her story, especially knowing how they're connected, which is revealed later?
I think that choice is really the key to understanding Evelyn. It's not just about confessing her secrets. It's about finding some kind of redemption, making sure people see her legacy the way she wants to be seen.
Okay.
And Monique, as someone from a younger generation, someone outside of Evelyn's world, she becomes the voice for that truth.
That's a really interesting point. It's like she's passing the torch, letting someone else tell her story from a different perspective.
Exactly. And it's through Monique's journey, her own struggles and discoveries, that we really understand Evelyn's complexities and, all the things that shaped her life.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo, what's the one thing you hope people take away from it?
I think more than anything, it's a reminder that even the most glamorous lives are complicated and full of contradictions. It's like a challenge to look deeper than the surface, to question what we're told, and to accept that being human is messy.
Well said. It's a story about ambition, love, betrayal, and in the end, the search for authenticity in a world that's obsessed with how things look.
And it leaves us with a question, how do we navigate our own lives, our own secrets and desires in a world that's always trying to define us?
It's a question worth thinking about for sure. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.